Hi everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be sharing how to create content with ChatGPT using custom instructions. For those of you who do not know custom instructions, it is basically a new function by OpenAI and it has been out for quite some time now. I've been testing it quite a fair bit and had a lot of fun using it alongside Code Interpreter in combination with a very special prompt where I've used them together to create my very own learning AI assistant. Do check out that video if you haven't. Links is in the description below. And for today, I'll be using the same instruction prompt to generate content. Then I will also compare it to another set of prompt instructions that I've generated based on various SEO best practices. So because this is a comparison, we will need to weigh the articles based on a few factors to pick a winner, right? And there are three factors that I'll use today. Starting off with factor number one, which is word count. If you have been using ChatGPT extensively to create content or you're an SEO, you will probably know that ChatGPT is terrible at generating long-form content due to its token limit constraints. But if you're going after a competitive keyword, you will usually require a longer than average word count for your content. And a lot of people, what they will usually do is they will get ChatGPT to break the content up into a few sections and then write them separately in order to achieve a higher word count. But do take note, ChatGPT context window, which includes both your prompts and the AI responses, is limited to about 4,000 tokens. Now, I can't really remember is it 4,000 or 8,000, but it's roughly around there, right? But that just simply means that the conversation that you had with the AI, if it ever exceeds this token window, everything above it that you have prompt or anything that the AI has ever responded as well, it will be forgotten. This is also why a lot of times when you do a very long chat, right, with the AI, sometimes you will start to feel that the output or the response from the AI is starting to get very irrelevant to your initial prompt, right? So it's important to take note of that when you're going after high word count generation. Okay, so circling back to our factor number two, which is SEO keyword relevance score, right? For this, we'll use Surfer SEO to determine how well the contextual keywords are distributed naturally within the content that we have generated. So it's just simply pasting the generated content into the SEO Surfer editor and it will tell us what's the relevance score to our primary keyword. Okay, so factor number three, plagiarism and AI detection score. Now to me, plagiarism is a huge no-go. I will only allow a small percentage of plagiarism, which can be edited on top of it to make every line of text unique, which is why my threshold is only about maybe 6 to 7% plagiarized content, because, you know, that number is small, we can still edit on top of that, right? So I'm expecting the AI generated content to have a lot lower percentage in terms of plagiarism. And then, of course, for AI detection, to me, it's not as crucial because so far the content that I've created using AI and those that didn't pass the AI detection check, they still do very well in Google search. But I can't say the same for the future because, as you know, Google has been talking about differentiating AI and human written content, right? I won't be surprised if they add that into their algorithms in the future. But even if they do, I feel, in my own personal opinion, is that AI content is still here to stay. As long as you add value to your content, regardless whether it's AI generated or human written, it should still do pretty well, right? So that said, these are the 3 points that we will be weighing our final content on. So let's get started with our first prompt. All right, what we're going to do here is we're going to use custom instructions and paste in a set of instructions. So how do we go to custom instructions? Just go to the menu over here, click on custom instructions, right? And you will see a pop-up. So once you see this pop-up, there are 2 fields here that you need to fill up. Of course, it's optional. You can choose to fill up only one or you can fill up both, right? Basically, the top portion over here is what you like ChatGPT to know about you so they can provide better responses. And then, of course, there are thought starters over here. There's also thought starters below here just for you to give you some guidance on what you should put inside here. Okay, but based on all the tests that I've been running so far, I feel that this first portion over here, all right, this text box over here is more to specify a persona or just to specify who your target audience are. You could also put in your goals, right, into this segment over here. Right, the second section is how you like ChatGPT to respond. I always like to call this portion here an instruction prompt, right? Because it's sort of like a baseline instruction on how you want ChatGPT to respond based on, right? You can set like certain format, you can set like certain way to respond. You can even ask it to address you in certain ways, right? So it's more like an instruction, right? So I'll be filling these two up with a prompt from here. Okay, so I will not be running through every single line, because basically this prompt, I've gotten it from one of the SEO experts out there on the Forbes article, right? In fact, this portion here is the writing style, right? Is my writing style, and it should be placed in the second portion over here under the instruction prompt, right? Yeah, but because of, you know, there are character limits, so I actually place it on top and I rewrite it a little bit just to make sure that the AI knows that I'm a content writer, I'm an SEO content writer, and this is the type of content that I've always done. or always have done, right? So I specialize in writing original technical long form content, and then my content is always like written in this style. So I just place it on top, right? As part of like a goal, right? And then the second portion over here, these instructions that I've gotten is actually reverse engineered based off, a set of articles and a set of SEO best practices from various experts, right? So how it works is that when a topic is given, ChatGPT should always think about how to make the content better for readers. When a topic is given, ChatGPT should always think about how it will affect rankings. While writing an article, ChatGPT should always make sure that LSI keywords are naturally used within the content. While writing an article, ChatGPT should always implement the best practices of content SEO. And the best practices are the following, right? Quality content. So all these are from priming ChatGPT, right? On various SEO best practices content from all the experts out there, right? And it gave me this. So I'm just going to use this, right? So I'm going to save this, and any prompt that I'll use will actually set the context base of those two instructions that are added in earlier. So let's go to a new chat, go to ChatGPT 4. I'll be using Code Interpreter, and in a moment you will find out why, right? In short, I'm able to attach files. So in other words, if I'm generating something that's very long and it sometimes starts to forget like my outline, I could actually add in a new prompt to say that, hey, this is the outline that you talked about previously, right? So it's just sort of like a reminder. Although they technically don't remember anymore, because once you're outside the context window, they do not remember, but I can add in new prompts, right? So they will just treat it as a new prompt, right? So I can save up my outline, I can save up some parts of the content, I can re-prompt it in later to get ChatGPT to sort of work on it again. Right, so let's start off with the first prompt, and that is to come up with 5 highly SEO optimized blog post ideas on the topic of, and then I'll swap this out with quotes, and maybe let's do a topic on, I've done a lot on candlesticks because I'm into trading, right? So let's do another one on candlesticks. Candlestick patterns. So if you don't know, candlestick pattern is how Forex or stocks, these traders, they look at candlesticks. So candlestick patterns, right? So come up with 5 highly SEO optimized blog post ideas on the topic of candlestick patterns, write a headline and a 1-sentence summary. Let's run it. So on and off, I'll be fast forwarding just to speed up the process, right? Okay, so everything is here, mastering the art. Let's just select one, right? 10 essential candlestick patterns you will need to know for profitable trading. I like this. This feels more like a listicle, right? A 10 candlestick pattern that every trader should have in their toolkit. Okay, something more simple, more straightforward, right? So I like this, and I'm going to use this. Okay, so my second prompt goes something like that. And again, these prompts can be found online. You can use any others, right? I'm just using this as an example. Paste these between triple quotes. Okay, so for those of you who didn't know, right, triple quotes is actually the official way to separate prompt from text. So if you want to provide text, or you want the ChatGPT to refer to a certain portion of your prompt, right, and you want them to know that this is the text that I want you to refer my prompt to, then you will actually need to put in triple quotes. Although they are smart enough to know to differentiate between text, right? You can put semicolons like that, and they should know. But I'm just trying to be careful here because in the official OpenAI's playbook, the official OpenAI's documentation, they use triple quotes, all right? So I'm just going to use triple quotes as well. Okay, so how this works is, this will be the topic for a highly SEO optimized blog article. I put in my headline, my summary, then from this headline and summary, create a list of bullet points of what should be included in the article. All right, and let's run it. Okay, I think it's pretty comprehensive. It's pretty long as well. Lots of points. I'm just going to do another prompt just to make sure that they swap everything out to H2 and H3 in my outline. Okay, they are pretty descriptive in the headers as well, which I kind of like. Okay, then the next prompt you'll be going is something like that. Same thing. I'm just going to replace this in triple quotes, and I'm just going to copy the entire outline over here. Paste it in. Okay, I'll probably remove the first H1. Alright, so now write a 2,000 word highly SEO optimized blog article about this. So I just give them my outline. Write in markdown formatting. Due to your text limit constraints, break down the article to 2 to 3 parts. Once each part is done, let me review it before carrying on. So this sentence over here is, I've created it by myself. Basically, this prompt is a very simple prompt just to get ChatGPT to avoid giving me short content. Because if you get it to generate at once, your content will be pretty short, 700 words maybe. Right? But if I want it to exceed 1,000, 1,002, I would have to use this prompt, right? Feel free to use it if you want to, just to try it out, right? It's just letting them know that, I want you to actually break it down into parts so that you can, after each and every part, just let me know before, let me read through it before carrying on. So this will help to sort of like lengthen the article a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to do one more thing, right? I'm going to attach this file over here. Okay, so how I got this file, I actually look at the candlestick patterns as a keyword, and I got a bunch of contextual keywords from Surfer SEO, right? So I copied everything and I put it into an Excel spreadsheet, right? So I'm going to add one more prompt, and that is to please also refer to the LSI keywords and use them naturally in the content. Okay, and let's go. Okay, so that concludes the first part of our articles, right? And I'm going to start doing it this way. I'm going to add in my LSI keywords again. Okay, and I'll say, please carry on to part 2. Remember to use the LSI keyword naturally in your writings. Okay, and let's go. So over here, if I expand this, you can see that it's, reading it off the LSI keywords here. Okay, seems like it's finished. Let me also then carry on with, please carry on with part 3. Okay, seems like it's following it pretty well. It still remembers its outline. Okay, so I think that's all. The article is completed. So now let's try putting them all together and then putting them into the various tests that we talked about earlier. Right, so let's start with that. All right, so let's see what's our score. It's 57. Okay, I think it's pretty good, right? There's total of 1,620 words. From this prompt, this SEO best practice prompt, it did pretty well in terms of, achieving a higher score, right? There's just 3 more points, and then, you are sort of like at a 60 mark, right? And with just a little bit more further optimization, you should be able to get it to green. And of course, over here, I think average is 68. So we are still a little bit far from it, but by just one iteration, running it once, we do get 57. Now, of course, I have to be very honest here. I've already ran this a couple of times. Not all the time you can get it up to this high, right? The highest that I ever went was 75, but that was through a lot of priming and using many examples. So not all generations you can get it one shot at a higher score, right? Sometimes it might take you a couple of tries. Sometimes it's way lower as well, right? So it's really dependent on that point in time, what type of context you can provide further, right? So in this case, I didn't really give it a lot of context on, or I didn't really prime the AI on candlesticks. This is just basically a little bit like a zero shot where it's just taking references of data from whatever that they are being trained on, right? And then, of course, but we obviously set the parameter of it to be an SEO expert. So that's what it's trying to do. Okay, so this is a pretty good one. Let's copy everything here and move over to our copy leaks, right? So I'm using copy leaks to check whether is it an AI generated content and also whether is it plagiarized, right? So again, I've also tested this a couple of times already, and I do know that ChatGPT do often give me a very high plagiarized percentage, sometimes even as high as 15%. Of course, that's not ideal, but let's see, right? Let's see what happens here. Apart from copy leaks, there are many other AI detection tools as well, like originality.ai, Turnitin, right? And a lot of others. So there you have it. It's starting to detect plagiarism. I'm hoping it doesn't go above 7%. Then at the very least, you just need to update some small parts of these sentences, then you'll be fine. So again, it's mostly the definitions that they are sort of directly lifting off the sources. But we shall see. Okay, it's actually not too bad. It's just 7.9%, right? And identical, meaning exactly word for word, that is 100% lifted, is only 3.7%, right? Minor changes are like things that you paraphrase. I don't really care about minor changes because honestly, let's say, let me just show you an example, right? So you see, they highlight things like markets. I mean, how can you not copy these words, right? It's a single word. But in any case, like for example, this one here, right? And it says lifted from here. If I were to read it, sometimes it's really very different, right? So the body represents opening, closing prices of a specific period. So yeah, so it's very, very different. It's just that they paraphrase it a little bit. Yeah, and they detect slightest things like that, right? So I'm okay with this line here. I'll just keep it, right? But in terms of like identical, this is the one that I really worry about because this is 100% the same. So we just need to tweak a little bit here and there on all these words, then we should be fine. Okay, so by clicking here, we will be able to see whether did they detect as an AI writing. And they did, right? So suspected teaching, AI text detected, very high. So, okay, so that is the first experiment. We are going to move on to the second experiment where I'll use something more mind-blowing, all right? Alright, so I'm going to start on the second experiment. So what we're going to do right here is that we are going back to our custom instructions over here, and we're going to swap out this prompt. Alright, this instructions prompt section over here. I'm going to just remove this initial prompt, and I'm going to go to Nick Dobo's Twitter post, right? So this is basically the prompt that he's using as the instructions to ChatGPT, right? So I'm not going to go through this entire prompt in detail, but long story short, this prompt just basically is a set of instructions for ChatGPT to follow, and it will create a task list, right, and execute them one after the other. It will then also save this task list into a ChatGPT to-do.txt file, and on top of that, it will provide us with several multiple choices that allows us to make the decision on whether we should advance with that task list, go backwards, or change that task list entirely, right? Let me just demonstrate this, right, to see it in action. Then you would probably understand what I'm saying. All right, so I'm just going to paste this prompt inside this instruction text box over here and save it. All right, and then we will start a new chat, go to ChatGPT 4, followed by code interpreter. So the prompt that I'll be using will be the same as the one that we did in the first experiment. So I'm just going to swap out this keyword with the keyword that we have been testing out with, right, which is candlestick parents, right? So I'm going to get it to do the same. Just give me 3 headlines this time around for a headline, 3 different headlines and 3 different one-sentence summary. Okay, so what it does over here is based on the prompt that I've given it. It's going to give me 3 steps, right? So it's going to give me a task list, and along with the 3 different ideas with summary, right? So what it's going to do here is that with the task list and also the ideas, it's just going to save it up and write it into a txt file. And the next part is where the magic happens, right, where they're going to give me 4 different options to choose from to advance forward by running through each and every one of these tasks and execute them, or should I actually go backwards or go sideways. So you will see how it works in a while. Okay, so I kind of like the blog post idea 1, which is the headline of Mastering the Market, a comprehensive guide to candlestick patterns for beginners. So I'm going to choose that, right? Right, so yeah, so as you can see, it's writing everything into this file, and you are able to download it. So once you download this file, you would be able to say, like, if you exceed the token limits, right, or you exceed the context window of this chat, you could actually reattach this file back into the code interpreter to get it to sort of like remember, right? I mean, not really remember, but prompt is more like a new prompt, but it's able to take context back. So in this case, it gives me 6 options over here, and it asks me whether I want to proceed in creating these blog posts, and they assume that I want all 3, right? So do you want to revise the blog post ideas or summaries? That's going backwards, right? So I'm going back to revise that ideas, and then I'm going A and D are like more like sideways, where brainstorm additional ideas, right? And also like to explore or to promote these blog posts for better visibility. So D is probably the next step, where it's going more to the marketing end of the content. Of course, there's WWs and double S, where you want to move forward more aggressively or move backwards more aggressively. All right, so for in this case, we're going to choose W, but go with title and summary 1. All right, so you see how this is so intuitive, where you, instead of just following its instructions, right, or the multiple choice, right, you can actually give it more context to further go into this topic, right? So it is now going to create a new task list, right, which is starting off with researching first, and then create the outline, and then write the introduction with the hook, develop the body of the blog post, write a compelling conclusion, and then the SEO elements all comes in, followed by all the infographics and stuff like that, right? So it's asking me, let's start with the research, right? Do you have any specific sources you would like me to use, or should I base the research on general knowledge about candlestick patterns for beginners? So yeah, it's pretty impressive. So the only problem that I realized is, as it's writing the task into the file, it's rather slow, especially during periods where it's congested, right? Where many people is using the ChatGPT as well, right? Okay, so it's giving me the prompts again. I'm not going to revise the blog post idea or summary. I just actually want to start creating the outline, right? So I'm just going to go with A. Okay, so I'm just going to get it to create the outline. Instead, I want it to use H2, H3, and H4 to structure the outline. I'm also going to attach LSI keywords that you can refer to when creating that outline. All right, so I'm just going to select my file here, LSI keywords, Excel file, and I'm going to send it in. This outline is a little bit weird because it's only selecting 2 different patterns, and when it comes to common mistakes, it's only giving me 1. So it's kind of weird, but doesn't matter, because as we go down the task list, right, we are able to customize accordingly, right? So this is the great thing about these prompt instructions. Alright, so it's prompting me next to write the introduction, revise the outline, start developing the body of the blog post, and even asking me if I need assistance to select relevant images or infographics. So this is where I can probably do some reverse prompting to get it to give me mid-journeys prompts, right? And then of course the more extreme or more aggressive ones, that is, are you ready to start writing the blog post immediately based on the outline, or do you want to pause? Right, so I'm just going to go with W. Okay, so the choices are out again. I'm just going to move forward to create the body content. Okay, again, it's starting to give me really short content pieces, which is not something that I really like. I prefer it to be more detailed, more comprehensive, right? Okay, so let's just go ahead with it. I'm just going to advance forward. All right, so it's giving me really very surface content. So I'm just going to get it to revise this. All right, and at the same time, you will be able to see how the options that I'm given is able to help me customize my revision. So I'm going to go with S this time around, which is, do you want to revise the sections that have been written so far? Okay, so I'm going with S. The current content too simple. You lifted it off. But I still think it can do a lot way better, right? Because I've honestly, I've ran this a couple of times. It did a lot better. It's just not giving me enough substance. Okay, I'm going to try something. I'm going to get it to assume a particular role now. I'm going to get it to revise this. I'm going to get it to assume a role and see if this actually is helpful, right? And to also really stretch and see whether how far we can go with these prompt instructions, right? So I'm going to go with S, and I'll say you are now a SEO content writer with 10 years of experience. Please provide options on how you can improve on this section. Okay, so sometimes I might need to prime it this way, since it's giving me all these examples. We will then use this as context, right? Yep. So you see how I'm able to sort of like reprompt it, get it to go towards a more customized way, or rather, you see how we are able to use these prompt instructions, right, to further customize each and every one of the section, right? So just to make sure we are on time, let's just carry on, right? Let's just proceed on with this. Although I wouldn't say this is the most ideal one. Of course, you can keep getting it to revise further, or getting it to focus on some of these prompt that they actually thought of for you, right? So things like the add more original insights, use more examples, right? And also the using bullet points and stuff. I think all these are like good points, and it's also incorporating them already. Okay, so it's remembering that it needs to add SEO value and depth, right? So it's going to give me more of that moving forward, I hope, right? It seems like this because they're giving all the key takeaways, right? All right, it even tells me the trading strategies. So yeah, I think it's pretty much better. It's more actionable now, since it's telling me that, bearish engulfing, I should take up a short position or at the open of the next candle after the pattern, right? So it's pretty accurate. Okay, so I think it's much better now. But let's see, right? Let's see if it's able to give me more. Okay, I think it's doing well right now. Let's proceed forward and do a bullish engulfing. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to carry on. All right, but I'm going to get it to add one more candlestick pattern, right? Okay, so I'm just trying to lengthen it as much as I can, and also to show you the power of customization with these prompt instructions, right? Because you would be able to customize and rearrange your content, very intuitively. You can add in stuff along the way. You can change and swap out content along the way. You can even change the style of writing. Just like you see earlier, how I actually halfway through get it to just assume a role of an SEO writer, right? And it did manage to assume that role, and it even provided suggestions. So very much like our learning Python example in my previous video, it's the same thing where it is just very customizable on the actions that you want it to take. Okay, so I think after this, we can actually go for the conclusion, right? And we can actually look at their scoring also. Let's see if it's able to pass the plagiarism scoring, right? Which is something that I'm pretty much worried about because, a lot of times ChatGPT's generation, they do tend to leave passages of other people's content or the content that they are being trained on, the data that they're being trained on. But in our first experiment, it was pretty good, right? It did manage to keep the plagiarized percentage low. But let's see if our second experiment manages to do that as well. All right, so you see here, I've added in the doji pattern. Right, I could actually get it to do more, but for the sake of time and also just to make sure that we are still within the context window, I'm just going to stop here, right, and go straight to the next couple of sections and let's just start running the test and score the content. Okay, pretty impressive. So I spotted something here because under common candlestick patterns, I told the AI to add doji, right? So previously it wasn't in the list, and it seems like it's remembering that and it's putting it in the key takeaways. So I would say this time around, it did a really good job in saving up whatever there's in the task list, right? So it's able to sort of like reference that back into the key takeaways. Okay, so I have formatted everything nicely. I'm just going to start this scan over here to check for plagiarism while I go over to the SEO side over here to look at the score, right? Okay, so not too bad. It managed to hit a 55, and the word count here is also pretty good. It's about 1,700 words, although I think if we were to customize it and get it to start assuming the role at an earlier stage, we probably might be able to exceed the 2,000 word mark. So I think this is pretty good. And a couple above. Right, so I think the percentage, actually the percentage is pretty good. In fact, the identical is only 2.8%, right? In total, it's 5.8%, which is even lower than our first experiment, right? But it's still detect here as AI written content, right? Okay, but nonetheless, plagiarism score is really low. I think this is a good attempt. In terms of word count wise, it also did a pretty good job of 1,700 words. In terms of scoring, obviously, it can do a lot better if I get it to really customize it even more, put in even more of this context, or get it to assume a role, it might do a lot better, right? But in any case, based on the scoring, I would say I really like the first experiment in terms of the scoring. The second one, it's more customizable in terms of the word count, right? So in fact, if I were to further prompt it earlier on to get it to assume a role or to get it to prime it a little bit with more SEO guidelines, right? Like how I did for the example one, right? I should be able to increase this word count a lot more. So in terms of optimization score, I would say both are roughly the same, but word count wise, the second prompt definitely does a lot better. In fact, in terms of the plagiarization as well, I think the second one actually did better right now. But that said, actually before this, I've run many experiments. The first prompt actually did a better job on average, right? This based on my own observation. Of course, you can try it out yourself, right? Try both prompts yourself, and then you can play around with it and see for yourself. But in my experience, when I tried using the first prompt, first instruction prompt, I do often get a lower plagiarism percentage as compared to the second one. But of course, these are just experiments. You can't get it to have a very high score every day because certain generations are sometimes very wonky, and you might get into instances like earlier on where I have met a couple of errors and things like that, right? So, using ChatGPT is one way of creating content. But honestly, if you have the budget for it and you want to really drive more SEO driven content, there are better tools out there like Surfer SEO already have an AI that is able to help you create content, right? There is also things like Agility Writer and a lot more like Autoblogger, Word Galaxy. There's so many today, right? And they're all using AI to generate content. So honestly, the one thing that I dislike about this is that people are going to start abusing it. Everybody is going to start generating content using all these AI tools, right? And this content will start to become very mediocre. Everyone's content is going to sound the same, right? So that's where this type of prompt that allows you to customize your output, right, will be able to help you to essentially get an AI writing assistant, just like my learning assistant, right? It's able to generate thoughts for you for the next steps so that it guides you accordingly. And on top of that, it's able to execute it, right? So it's able to write the exact content out for you. The only limitations I can say is it doesn't have any internet access, it doesn't have up-to-date information, and it can't do any research, right? And then, of course, secondly is the context window. Obviously, if the context window is much larger, I'm able to prime it further. You would be able to essentially get the AI to write for you, but the ideas are coming from you, right? And of course, the ideas can also come from the creativity of the AI as well. So that's where you play around with the temperature settings and stuff, right? But of course, that's a little bit too much for today's video. If you don't know what's temperature, you can also check out my previous first few videos, right, where I talk a lot about playing around with temperature and how does it even affect your output, right? So that said, obviously in this experiment, we are just playing around with the different prompt instructions. As you can see, it is so powerful, right? And where we are going today, anyone can become a writer. Anyone can start learning a new skill, right, just by using such prompts. Okay, so that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, if you like this video, do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. In the next couple of videos, I'm planning to probably do a couple more experiments on text generation AI, like your Claude Llama 2 that is equivalent to ChatGPT, right? I don't really know if that's the right way to pronounce their names, but these are really powerful text generation AI. So I'm planning to also explore those as well. So that could be my next video. Or I might just maybe do a deeper dive into Code Interpreter and really uncovers its use cases, right? There are some users where not a lot of people are talking about it. I might just explore that more in detail and share it with you guys. So do let me know if you have any topic that you want me to cover about AI. I could also start going into more on image generation AI as well. So I've been playing around with Mid Journey as well and Stable Diffusion and so on, right? So it's really pretty mind-blowing, especially when, we even have Runway ML, right, which is a text to video generation. I might just do one on that as well, right? So do let me know in the comment section on the topics that you are really interested, and I might just explore that and run some experiments on it. Yep, so I guess that's about it. So do stay tuned to my channel and stay safe.